Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I just want to dive into some signs and symptoms that you need to declutter your mind. I'm going to share 50 with you that might be a little overwhelming for some people. Feel free to put this on like double speed and put a little marker next to the things that you feel like you really resonate with, and maybe you can come back and listen to those. But I just think that of all of the ways that we can help ourselves and do better in the new year and just create a better life for ourselves, any way that you look at it, your mind and decluttering thoughts that are not helping you and that are really just holding you back and making you unhappy, that's got to be the best place to start, right? So let's start with just identifying, and then next week I'm going to share some of my favorite ways to go about decluttering your mind so that we can start all fresh and clear and rejuvenated for 2025. If you want a printout of this list of 50 things so that you can kind of go through and mull over it at your own pace and check things off or make notes, I will have a link to that down in the description. All right, let's do this. Number one is if you wake up feeling ragey. When you get overwhelmed and you have just overstimulation happening in your head, that can happen. I saw this in my Instagram feed, this post that said, "I woke up so ragey today." This person goes through the story about sometimes she wakes up and she's just really angry and she put herself in the closet and wrote down all of these thoughts and feelings that she was having. And I know the sensation, like I've experienced things like that before, just waking up and feeling irritated or anxious first thing in the morning. And so if you're waking up with these really unpleasant feelings, then there's a really good chance that you need to declutter your mind. Number two is if you're having unusual decision fatigue. With myself and Matt, he almost always defers decisions to me about like anything. What do you want to eat tonight? Oh, I don't know. What do you whatever you want. That's fine. Do you think that the girl should be able to do X, Y, and Z? Oh, I'll let you make that decision. That's whatever you think. And whenever I start to feel really overwhelmed and to where I just like can't take it in my head anymore, I notice that I just like throw it back at him. Like, oh no, not today. What do you think we should do? What do you want to have done? I'm not making any decisions. You just tell me and I'm along for the ride. Number three is if you can't zoom out. If you find yourself constantly like stuck in the weeds and you're focusing on all of these little pieces that are not really that important, if you were to step back and think about it, maybe they would be things that you wouldn't even tend to, or you would push it off and let somebody else take care of it later. But right now, you're like hyper focused on this little minute thing. You've heard the saying, can't see the forest for the trees, right? Like when you're too in it. And that tends to happen when you have so many thoughts that are swarming around in your head or so much stuff that's going on. And you need to like pull out and declutter a little bit of that so that you can get that bird's eye view again, because it's just really important to directing the decisions that you're making and the actions that you're taking. If you find yourself clicking the same app compulsively, like opening your phone and without even thinking about it, your fingers have already like gone to a certain place and tapped on this app that you've already checked, and you know that there's nothing new in your bank statement or on Instagram or in your email account, but there ain't nothing new in here. That's a good sign that you need to declutter your mind, because you're in this automated action phase where you're not really accomplishing anything because you're probably too overwhelmed to take those actions. If you find yourself regularly bitter and offended by the people that you're supposed to love, like your adult kids, your close friend, and now all of a sudden you're just really fired up and bitter and annoyed and irritated, and every time they do something, you're just like, meh, meh, meh. Well, yeah. That's a good sign that you need to declutter your mind. Either that person needs to have a different role in your life, or you need to adjust your brain and your perception of that person to be more positive and less cumbersome, not only for them, but also for you. If you're always rushing, you know those people who are just like constantly rushing, and sometimes it may be a personality type, but if that's not your personality type and you find that you're like even just rushing to make a cup of coffee and you're rushing to go to the bathroom and peeing as fast as you possibly can, or like every time I go to the dentist, and I like my dentist, but I always feel this rushed sense whenever she walks into the room. It's like she's talking faster, she's looking at the door frequently, and I'm like, it would take the exact same amount of time to just take a deep breath, make eye contact, and say a few calm sentences. You don't necessarily have to take more time in order to slow down. If you're constantly overthinking, usually about conversations that you've had with people, like, oh, they haven't responded. It's been a couple of days. Did I say something at some point that has offended them? I probably said something that offended them. And you're like thinking through all the conversations and over analyzing. If you're over analyzing and over critiquing, anything, then there's a good chance that you just have a lot of stuff going on in your head that you need to declutter, or that maybe you need to be a little more active so that your brain isn't attaching to all of these things and swirling them around in your head so much. If you have trouble sleeping, there's a good chance that you need to declutter your mind. Your brain's racing at nighttime, you wake up and your brain's racing again, and you wake up in the middle of the night because somebody gets up to go pee, and all of a sudden you're awake for 2 or 3 hours because you just can't calm and settle back down. If you lack accountability in general, you need to declutter your mind, because it takes so much energy and resources and effort to always find a way to make yourself in the right? Like to refuse accountability and always be able to flip it around to somebody else, that takes a lot of resources, that takes a lot of brain power. And if you're doing that on the regular with multiple people, then you need to declutter that and find new ways of accepting accountability. If your space is a mess, there's a good chance that your mind is also a mess and that you need to declutter some of your thoughts, or that you're shoving too many things on your plate to be able to maintain. This definitely happens to me also. Whenever I'm overwhelmed, I have too many projects going on at once, things in the home tend to get pushed aside a lot, and I'll visibly notice the stuff in my space that I'm not putting back where it belongs. I've said before, our environments are a reflection of our mind. You have a thought that leads to an emotion, that leads to an action, that leads to your environment, and the cycle continues. So if you're seeing the representation of all of those thoughts that need to be decluttered inside of your space, well, that's a good sign that you need to declutter your mind. If you find yourself procrastinating important things, now we all procrastinate some things, and maybe you procrastinated taking the Christmas tree back down to the storage area this year. I'm not speaking from personal experience or anything, but if you find yourself pushing back on and procrastinating big important things that you know you need to do and that you know you would be happier if you just did them, then there's a good chance that you need to declutter your mind. If you can't focus and you find yourself with multiple tabs open, you can't focus on one thing at a time, so your mind is jumping back and forth and you're trying to take care of this over here, but then also answer this person over there, and you're mixing people's names up in different emails because you're trying to do so many things. If you're perpetually anxious or on edge, you need to declutter your mind. And if you're constantly forgetful, you can't remember what you walked downstairs for unless there's some kind of a health reason that has you in that state, or maybe it's that time of the month and you feel like that once a month. But otherwise, if you're just feeling super overwhelmed, it can make you forgetful and to where you can't really even remember what was I saying? If you have digital overload, hundreds or even thousands of emails that have been sitting in your inbox since the holidays or before, or notifications that are just sprawled all across your phone. You don't even know what's notifying you, or your social media accounts have so many messages that you haven't caught up to. You know what I'm saying? If you have your entire desktop covered with random files to where you can't locate anything anymore, there's a good chance that you also need to declutter your mind. You may also just need to declutter your digital spaces. If that's the case, then I do have a friend, Kath Younger, who has all of the information that you need to know about digital clutter, and she has a free workshop I'll link in the description. If you're feeling low energy and exhausted on the regular, you probably need to declutter your mind. And if you're feeling trapped in your current situation, you just can't find a way out, it feels like your job or your relationships or whatever is going on in your life right now, you can't think of any way around it before, after, or past it, then you need to declutter your mind. You need to get out of your space for a little bit, because I assure you, aside from the loss of someone really close to you, very few things really need to be that all-encompassing. If you're to the point of avoidance, ignoring problems instead of addressing them head on because you just can't anymore, you just can't do it anymore, there's a good chance that you need to declutter your mind. Or if you're finding it difficult to be present, you're having a conversation with somebody, you're at the dinner table and you're constantly thinking about something else that you're working on, or checking your phone, you're staring and nodding at somebody you're listening intently, but you haven't heard a word they're saying. If you're constantly engaging in negative self-talk, and I think a lot of people think that this is actual words going on in your head, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be thoughts, wordless thoughts you're looking older now. Oh, there are more wrinkles. Oh man, I need to lose some weight. Look at me, this looks gross. Or I wish that these people wanted to work with me, but there's no way because they're so much bigger and better than I am. It can sometimes just be emotions that come up. Emotions, these feelings of inadequacy, these feelings of not being quite up to par. And it can even show up as being like aggressive to other people who you feel like are where you want to be or do have the traits that you want to have, or just for some reason disliking them, even though you don't really have a reason to dislike them. A lot of times it's not just negative self-talk, it's negative self-emotions. If you find yourself really clinging to perfectionism and just obsessing over tiny details that don't really matter, or if you find that you're restless and you have trouble being in a quiet place, or you feel uneasy when things are calm, like just this whole restless, I don't feel comfortable in this situation because more and more things need to be going on, or there's more and more that I need to be doing right now. Or if you find yourself comparing yourself to other people, and this isn't necessarily something that you would even notice, but maybe you're just scrolling through your phone and you come across images of some 60-year-old actress who looks like she's 35, and you're just thinking, what do I need to have done to where I could look 30? Or 20 again. Or, oh, this person is such a good spokesperson. They have so much charisma. Why can't I be wittier? Or why can't I have more charisma and just thrive being in front of people? If you find yourself making uncharacteristically impulsive decisions, not just spontaneous going out for a treat or something, but impulsive decisions that could potentially be dangerous maybe, or that could financially ruin you and you haven't even thought it through. Knee-jerk reactions like that can sometimes just be the effect of us having too many thoughts going on in our head and feeling like we need to make a decision right now and we need to do something. If you forever have unfinished tasks and your to-do list literally never seems to shrink, or you're engaging in escapism and just living on YouTube or Netflix or whatever book that you're in and pretending like nothing else in the world exists. If you have chronic worry and you say, I'm just a worrier, you poor thing, that is another full-time, very negative, oppressive job. It's like Phil says in Modern Family, Claire says, you almost slammed the refrigerator door on my face or something like that. And he said something like, honey, I already have to apologize for all of these things that I've done wrong. If I start apologizing for things that didn't even happen, how productive of a person would I be? It's kind of the same thing with worry. We have enough stuff that's actually gone wrong to worry about. Any given person does in their life. How productive of a person would we be if we constantly find things to worry about that haven't even happened? If you find yourself overreacting, maybe just bursting into tears at the smallest thing, and that's not really your style, and you're just like crying over everything, or you're just feeling indecisive and you can't seem to commit to anything, like you're just standing in the breakfast bar aisle at the grocery store looking at all of the different types of breakfast bars, and you can't bring yourself to commit to any single one. If you forget to take breaks and you realize, oh, I didn't eat today, or man, I haven't gone to the bathroom in 5 hours, there's a good chance you need to declutter your mind. If you feel disconnected and you're having trouble connecting with others or even with yourself, like, who am I right now? Like, what do I even feel right now? I don't even know. I don't even know my own decisions, my own emotions, just everything feels disconnected. Almost like you're just floating above your body and above everything else. That means that you're probably really overloaded in your brain and you need to do a good amount of mental decluttering. If you're constantly obsessing over the past, or if you're constantly obsessing and anxious over the future, doomsday planners, the whole world, the country is going to hell in a handbasket, everything is bad and it's only going to get worse. If you're not able to enjoy doing things that you usually enjoy doing, and I'm not talking about depression, although sometimes the symptoms of anxiety and depression can be like confused or merged or caused by having this overwhelm in your mind or these like thoughts that need to be decluttered from your mind. But like if you usually really enjoy taking a hot bath or reading your book before bed, and now all of a sudden you're just like too agitated and too overwhelmed to even enjoy being able to do that, then there's a good chance that you need to declutter your mind. If you've started having headaches or worsening TMJ and jaw pain because you're clenching so much, you may even be clenching in your sleep, or muscle pain. I know for me, it tends to be in the middle of my scapula, my shoulder blades, that muscle that goes around there. Usually it's on the right side. Like I'll have this one spot right on the back of my right shoulder blade that just holds all of my tension. And that usually happens when I just have too many things going on in my brain. And that's my body's way of letting me know that that's going on. Or you may just be feeling sick or run down, like just generally fatigued and yucky and like you're coming down with something, but you're not running a fever and nothing else is really happening. If you're feeling lost, like you have no real sense of purpose or direction, you don't really know where to focus your time or energy, and you just kind of feel like you're floating adrift. Or if you find yourself neglecting self-care, not feeling the need or finding the time to, or feeling the importance of stopping to do things just because you enjoy doing them, or just because it feels good, or just because you really do need a break. If you have a really hard time letting go, I used to wear that as a badge of honor. I remember when I was much younger, like I can hold on to a grudge like it's nobody's business. Like that was some good thing to have. But that was so much clutter in my mind that did not need to be there. It could have been used in much more productive, happy, pleasant ways that were going to benefit my life. And a lot of people just wear that like a badge of honor and hold on to negative grudges or just refuse to let things go. And it could also present as things in your home that you're just having trouble letting go of, even though you know that they are no longer serving a purpose in your space. If you're having mood swings, constantly flipping back and forth from angry to sad to irritated to weepy, or if you have unclear goals, you're not really sure what you should be working on right now, and you have so many things that you want to do, but you're not really sure which ones take priority, and everything is just a little fuzzy and too much. That can really easily happen in January, the new year, when you're wanting to do so many things and accomplish so many things that you just have trouble focusing in on some of the really important ones or prioritizing. If you spend a good portion of your time spinning your wheels, you're busy, you're taking actions, you're running from place to place, but you're not actually accomplishing anything, or nothing ever feels like it's moving forward. Or if you have difficulty organizing and categorizing your thoughts, everything just feels like it kind of exists in this floating space that is your head. If you're living with a heavy amount of guilt or shame and it's not going away, and it may even be perpetuating for years and years, it's not helping anybody. It's not helping anybody that you feel guilty about possibly offending or hurting, or shame over anything that you did. The guilt and the shame doesn't help anything. It only adds power to the thing that you're feeling guilty or shame about. And it kind of takes over your brain, it takes over your emotions, and it keeps you from being able to move forward and course correct and do better things with your future. You gotta declutter that stuff. All right, my sound went out. So for me, this is over a week later. For you, you're stuck here in this time. I've been watching too much Severance. So let's finish off this list, shall we? If your posture is slouching or cowering or in like a funky position a lot, and maybe you catch yourself in the side mirror and you're like, oh, gotta straighten up. You know, a lot of times when we have so much stuff going on in our mind, our body starts to kind of physically close in on itself. And that causes a lot of the muscle and joint pains that we experience when we're having stress from having an overwhelmed mind. You may also notice or experience shallower breathing. So you're just not taking a deep breath. Occasionally, whenever I feel like I have too many things going on, my mind is just too cluttered, I'll notice that I need to like force myself to take a deep breath more often. Like, okay. And of course, chronic negativity. Whether it's normal for you, like you're just kind of that type of person who sees the negative side or the gray cloud over everything, which means that your decluttering mental process is probably going to take a lot longer and be a lot more in depth than somebody who's just going through a period of having too much mental clutter and that causing them to see things in a dimmer light. That can be a sign, though, that you need to declutter your mind. If you find that you're walking around and now all of a sudden things that were fine yesterday or a week ago, now you see them in a different light and everything just feels bad, it feels negative. And number 50 is one that I really like, and that is low resilience. I don't like low resilience, but I like acknowledging when you have low resilience, because I really pride myself in having high resilience. Like, I'm a resilient person. It's pulled me through life, really. It pulled me through things that just, I'm surprised that I am where I am today, just having that resilience. But when my mind gets overrun and cluttered, it wears me and my resilience down. So hopefully this little self-evaluation list of 50 signs that you need to declutter your mind was helpful, and you can pinpoint some areas where, okay, that is something that I need to work on, especially for this year. And I want this to be a clear freeing year, not only in your space, but also in your mental space. And again, next week, I'm going to dive into some of my favorite ways to reduce that mental clutter and help you get back to a space of clarity. I'll chat with you next week. By the way, if you're a mom, keep your eyes peeled because I have an event coming up for you very soon. It's not open yet, but just giving you a little sneak peek into something that I've been working on. You can follow me on Instagram if you want to kind of see the process unfold. Nothing new yet, but it's in the works. I'll chat with you next week.